Hi everyone. Really happy to be live with Dinuka Mckenzie. After quite a tale that we might later. Do you want to start us off with an introduction to yourself and your book?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here. It is 5:30 in the morning here in lovely Australia. So I'm coming to you from beautiful Darwin country in southern Sydney in Australia. So yeah, as Caroline said, my name is Dinuka Mckenzie. So I am a Sydney-based author, and I'm very excited because my books. It's a police procedural series featuring detective called Detective Kate Miles. And the first of the books, The Torrent, is now being released in the UK. Or, well, the whole series is being released in the UK, but the first book is coming out in September the 18th, which is very exciting. I'm very excited. And it's got this beautiful cover, which is cool. I love it when they do brand new covers for different territories. So that's very exciting. So a little bit about the book. As I said, it is a police procedural series and it's set in Australia, of course. And in The Torrent, when we meet Kate, she is very heavily pregnant and she is kind of counting down her last week of work before she goes on maternity leave. And she's trying to kind of, tie up her loose ends. And she's in the middle of this final case, which involves a robbery at a local McDonald's restaurant. And she's kind of trying to manage that when she kind of gets called by her boss to do this informal review of a death in floodwaters. And so what's happened in that town is over the summer period, there was a flood and there was a number of deaths as a result of that flood. And she is now asked to relook at one of those cases at the request of the family. And it's from the police's point of view or her boss's point of view, it's very much a kind of box ticking exercise, read the file, write a report, move on. But Kate does not work that way, and the story unfolds from there.
So you were saying, I mean, obviously there's going to be a rest of the series. Is there more of the series out in Australia?
It is, yes. So the books came out. So the first book came out, The Torrent, came out in Australia in 2022. Yes, that's right. And then the second book in the series came out this year. So it's just about a year, like 12 months, kind of a bit late in the UK. So it's going to come out. We've got Torrent coming out this year in September, and then Taken is coming out early 2024. So January 5th, I think, from memory. Yes.
That's exciting. How did you get involved with Canelo as a publishers from all the way in Sydney?
Yes, so it really it's my wonderful agent. So Alex Adsed, who I work with in Australia, and she has like I think sub agents and whatever in all the territories. So the wonderful Bill Goodall from the UK agency, he he sent out the books and Canelo came on board, and it was very, very, very exciting. Yeah, it's so lovely when someone connects with your writing, and yeah, you just want them to hopefully love it and kind of get the characters as much as you do. So, and they were just amazing. They were just read the books and loved it and wanted to kind of made the offer, and we were like, yes, please. So yeah. So it was very cool.
They're really good publishers, Canelo. Like a lot of their books over here are really good.
Oh, fabulous. Yeah. No, so it was like totally, I mean, for me, honestly, I never expected to get published, like full stop. So every step in this journey has been just like another wow moment. And I never expected, I mean, UK, like I literally kind of grew up reading all like Enid Blyton, Ruth Rendell, P.D. James, like obviously Agatha Christie, all like, all that stuff. So for me, and like all the TV series, everything in Australia, both back when I, because I was born in Sri Lanka, it's like all the TV series, everything was UK, right? So it really, it feels like, it feels like a kind of magic to be on UK shelves. That's, it's very cool.
So the Torrent, set in floodwaters,
Yes.
is that flooding a thing that happens? Because that feels like that's probably quite a rare occasion in Australia. But
Well,
that's probably me being a bit ignorant about like Australian weather.
No. Look, I think, okay, so actually it's very interesting because when I came to live in Australia, when I migrated to Australia in 92, um, like Australia was in Australia was in drought, and it was only in 2010, 11 there was some major flooding in this region, which is this book is setting, so the Northern Rivers region of New South Wales, and it's basically the border between the state of Queensland and the state of New South Wales is that border region. And there was these extraordinary floods, and that was really the first time I, as a person living in Australia, had seen the country in flood, like the really big floods. There's obviously historical records of flooding, and it obviously happens in different areas, but this was the first time I had seen it as kind of like a national emergency. So that's like really, those images are what stayed with me, and that's really the flood I was thinking about when I started writing this book. And then, of course, when it got released in 2022, then we had the next, which is now considered the largest floods in that region in Australia, which is which happened in 2022, just when my book was released, which is actually quite a not a very good moment, because on the one hand, you're like promoting this book and I'm in full promotion mode for this book. And then actual people are dying and actual people are losing their houses and livelihoods. And that was, it was not a nice period. So it was actually quite a weird moment to be releasing a book and then a flood happening at the exact same time. So so that area is quite flood prone because there's a lot of huge kind of rivers up there, and certainly we've been through that kind of now that La Nina cycle, which is the stuff that brings all the rains, but certainly there's been long periods of drought in Australia, so you're not wrong. But yes, but this stuff is now very much like the historic floods of Australia in that part of the world anyway.
Wow.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more. For Laura and Leslie, who are watching as well, have both said hello. Laura loves Australian set books. So tell us a little bit more about your main character.
Yeah, absolutely. So Kate is so when we meet her in the Torrent, she's basically a mum of a 4-year-old son, Archie, and she is basically, and she's got a husband who's kind of like a stay-at-home dad, who's the main carer of Archie, and she's heavily pregnant, as I said, with her second bub. And I would say Kate is very much, she's very ambitious. She is, she's a person who has worked very hard for her job, and and she's got to a point in her career where she's becoming a mum, but she does not want to give up what she has worked for. And I wanted to have a character there who, an equivalent male in her position would not have to give up anything in terms of his job for having a child. He would just kind of go back to work, and there wouldn't be those questions around their abilities and stuff like that. So I basically just wanted Kate to, one, I guess, have a stable relationship, which is not something you see in crime fiction in particular, and I just wanted her to be kind of like an everyday person that you would immediately recognize as either yourself or your female friends or your mum or your sister or the people you meet at school pickup, those kind of everyday person. And I just wanted to go, okay, well, not every detective in the world is kind of down and out, alcoholic, male, that kind of thing, and having a new girlfriend in every book. There must be a person there who's who has a stable relationship and is just trying to make a go of their little family. And I wanted that reflected on the book, and kind of the main tension to be in the actual mystery, rather than necessarily, her personal life, whether, she would break up with her husband or anything like that. So, so I just wanted that version of a detective on the page, and also a version of, her husband who is very supportive and, who doesn't have a problem kind of supporting her decisions, her professional decisions, and is kind of, doesn't have an issue kind of looking after his own child, type thing, doesn't feel emasculated by it. So yeah, so I wanted that set up to as a starting point. Yeah.
Kate's got a little bit of Sri Lankan heritage as well. Is that a bit of a kind of link to you as?
Yeah, that's a nod to me. So absolutely. I mean, I think certainly when I was writing, I certainly don't come from kind of like a writing background in the sense that I never dreamt about being an author or any of that. I really fell into writing when I became a mum, and I really fell into that very overwhelming space of finding, sort of bits of my identity kind of disappear. and so how I was dealing with that and how I was trying to find a little space for myself was to start to write. And I think I put a lot of myself into Kate. I don't think I can hide away from that. There's a lot of me and Kate. But what I do feel like is when I did start writing it as a series, what I did feel is that when I finally got to the second one, like in the Torrent, I was really trying to find the characters, etc. And then once I've got to the second one, I feel like, okay, now they are their own universe. They are separate from me, and Kate does stuff that, different things. And so I feel like now they are very separate to me. But certainly when I first started writing, it wasn't to get published. It wasn't for anyone to read it. It was very much for me. It was for me to have a place, like just something on the table that wasn't me as a wife or mother or employee. It was just entirely and selfishly for me, and I really felt like I needed that at that time. So yeah, so everything went into it. So it was, I mind a lot of my own life in that way. Obviously, I'm not a detective, but like the emotional truths are certainly probably very much based on, what was going on in my life at the time. Yeah.
There's I think the first book sort of particularly sets up all the characters really well for like an ongoing series, because you sort of feel like you spend a lot of the first book really getting to know them.
Yes.
Ready to kind of move on. Do you know what I mean? Like, I finished the first book and was like, I am ready to read the next one.
Oh, thank you. That's very lovely of me. Yeah, absolutely. I felt like you don't realize that's what you're doing, but it felt like, okay, actually, one of the things I do like about detective fiction, and I think that's something I got as a reader of crime fiction and detective fiction, is you really get to see the world through the detective's eyes. So like you get, you obviously get the detective's point of view, but you get an insight into their family, kind of the police colleagues and that family. So, and then like the kind of the politics and the politicking and the internal mechanisms that's going on there. And then obviously you get an idea of the kind of the victim and their family and then the town as a whole. So you're able to kind of create like a whole world, I guess, through the lens of the detective, and I think that's what I really enjoy as a reader. So I think that's what I was trying to do, not explicitly. I don't think I was thinking about that in such explicit terms, but I think that is what I was trying to do, because I was like, okay, well, now we'll set up Kate's family. What's going on with her relationships with her colleagues, and then what are these interesting things about the characters and the victims and kind of what was going on there. So yeah, all of those things are really interesting to me. So I just wanted to kind of set it all out. And yeah, and then I think particularly with Kate's relationship with her family, so with her dad and then with her brother, those things are absolutely set up for further stories, which you will get if you follow the series.
Well, I did wonder how you would carry it on when, like you said, I mean, we're not giving away a spoiler. At the start of the book, she's about a week away from maternity leave.
Yeah.
You get to the end of like book one and think, how are you going to continue this when she's like about to be on she's on maternity leave?
Yes. Well, I mean, not to give too much away, but certainly the Yeah, well, maybe it is giving too much away if we move on to the second one. But yes, no, Kate is definitely back in the second one. And what was really good about writing the Torrent was at the end of the Torrent, I really felt like I knew exactly where Kate's headspace would be. So I knew, based on the events of the Torrent, where she would be mentally and where she would be physically. And so that gave me a really defined springboard to go, okay, this is what then the second book would be. Where she would be in the second book in terms of mentally and physically. But then I obviously, I felt like, okay, well, once you know where they are mentally, you know how, like, what their vulnerability is. And so then the mystery needs to be pushing into that vulnerability, and therefore I knew what the new mystery needed to be. So I'll leave it at that, because otherwise it's giving too much away. So, but that's how I really did fall almost directly, like straight away, into the next book. I started writing that almost straight away after I had a good version of the Torrent, because it did take a few revisions. But once I was at the stage where I was starting to query it, I just went directly into writing the second one, because I felt like I knew exactly where Kate was in terms of her headspace. Yeah.
So do you have an idea of how long the series will be?
Well, so for my Australian publisher, I have just finished my third book. And so we're in the middle of copy edit. Oh, actually, we finished copy edits, and I'm just waiting to hear back on a few things. But yes, so that's where I'm up to. I want to, so I think it is I want to keep going with her as for as long as I enjoy writing her. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to, it has to be both interesting to me as a writer, as well as interesting to me, to the readers, because the readers are, the readers want to find something new about her. And if I've got nothing new to say about her, that's probably will be my endpoint for Kate. But, so I'm going to write her for as long as I enjoy writing about her.
It's a sound plan.
Yeah.
Would you have you got any other plans for books that don't feature Kate? I kind of wondered if you'd fancy a standalone. I've got another question following up as well.
Yeah, well, yes. Oh, you're asking all the questions. I am actually writing a standalone. So I'm always pottering. Like I'm not like I always feel like I need to be writing something. So I am, like, I don't even know if it is a book yet, because it is literally just playing with ideas at the moment. So it's that really early stage where you have this tiny little seed of an idea, and you don't know where it's going to go. So yes, so I do have an idea for a standalone. To call it a book at the moment would be, like, I think it'd be too early. It is just, I'm literally just playing with some ideas at the moment. So hopefully it will eventually become a book that is a standalone book. Yes.
My next one is, what about a prequel or a spin-off? Because Kate's
Oh,
dad.
okay. So there is actually a prequel. Hang on, I'll get this one out. So I don't know, Craig Sisterton, who's an amazing reviewer. He's a Kiwi reviewer, and he lives in England. And he did this. He edited this book, which is Dark Deeds Down Under, and it's a crime and thriller anthology, and it is from a whole bunch of Australian and New Zealand authors, established and up and coming, and it is the short stories feature their ongoing or their recurring characters. So it could be their recurring kind of detective character, but it could also be recurring kind of, I don't know, crime character, like the criminal character or whatever, or some sort of standalone kind of story that reflects something that they've already done. And so the prequel of Kate is in here. So a Kate prequel is in here. It's called Skin Deep. There is a little short story there, and we find Kate when she's very young, before she's married, and one of, like, kind of as a kind of a brand new kind of constable working in a different town, still up that northern coastline of New South Wales. But yeah, so yes, there is a little prequel story here. I haven't done like a prequel novel, but there's definitely a little prequel, which is out now, stores.
There's definitely scope for some stories about her dad as well.
Okay, anyway, yes, sorry. What was that? I missed the question, sorry.
I said there's definitely some scope for some stories about her dad as well when he was.
Yeah. Look, I get a lot of feedback about her dad being like an absolutely favorite character of many, many people. And I must say, he is probably one of my favorite characters as well. I would say Kate and Gray's scenes in all of the books, actually, not just the Torrent, but certainly in Taken. I think Taken was even easier than the Torrent, and even in this third book that I'm kind of writing, their scenes just walk on the page. Like they just, like, I sit down and I write the scene, and what ends up in the final book is probably like 80-90% of that. Like, obviously there's a few edits, but it kind of, it feels like they're just there waiting to have their dialogue. They seem to have a really easy rapport, even when they're fighting and, and resentful or whatever, that the dialogue comes really, really, really easily for me with those two characters. And so, so there's a lot of love out there for Gray. And I think that will be a lovely, actually, I don't know. So what I will say is in Taken, which is the book after, so the second book in the series, it is very much about Kate and her relationship to her dad. So that is the main kind of, or the main subplot, I would say, outside of the actual mystery. That is the relationship that I really wanted to explore in Taken. So there's a lot more of Gray in Taken.
Excellent. Right. I'm going to ask you some of the audience questions now.
Oh, okay, cool.
Stop hogging you, just mine. Laura said, have you ever acted out a scene to help with the writing process?
Oh, no, I haven't acted out the scene, but I have recently started using the read aloud function on Word. So I used to read it aloud by myself, but I don't know. I don't think I like hearing my voice. So it's not something that maybe helps me, but I have been starting to use the read aloud function on Word, and that is actually really helpful because it is so robotic that you really have to listen to the words, because sometimes I find that I know the sentences and I'm so close to the sentences that even when I am reading it out loud, I kind of hear the version I want to hear, like not the actual words. Whereas the robot reading it out, I go, oh, okay, that sentence really does not sound right, because I'm really concentrating on the words and the sentence, and particularly how long it is. My problem, particularly when I'm doing first drafts, is how long my sentences are. I tend to just keeps going, and the robot tells me that I have to take a breath, and that's really helpful. So I think it's called Karen, isn't it? Is it called Karen? I don't know. Anyway, my kids got me onto it because they started writing little short stories, and started using, like, Googling the longest words in the world so they could put it in the sentence and get the robot AI to read it out, and they would just like fall off their chairs laughing. So that's how I got into the read aloud function.
Good answer. You would think that you would less crazy answers in a crime book group, but have you ever acted out a scene? But we've had some brilliant ones. In the past, people do all sorts of crazy things while they're planning books.
Oh yeah. No, definitely. There's so many things, and that's the thing. Like, there's no one way. Like, everyone has, a completely different way, not completely different, but, you know, everyone kind of ends up getting there. And I know I actually do have there is a Australian writer who, you know, is actually UK, Anna Downs. I know you probably know her anyway. But she was, you know, she has an acting background, and that is absolutely her technique. She acts it out. But she has that acting background and that ability to kind of really, she has that training to tell when the words are working and the dialogue is working, because she can actually act it out. Whereas I just find my voice really weird. I don't want to listen to my voice. And so what I find is that's what I've found that works. But other people, you know, have the sticky note and all those kind of, you know, like that kind of like have to have like a vision board and all that. I don't have any of that. I'm not a very visual person in that sense. I very much need it to be quite linear in how I work. So I don't need like kind of, you know, visual representation of things in that way. So yeah, just like whatever works for you, and you got to lean into that, because there's no point trying to do vision boards when it doesn't work for me. So you just got to lean into whatever works for you.
I'm amazed, by the way. We bottle your energy, because it is like 5:30 in the morning where you are, and you're doing so well.
Oh, thanks. Well, I did, you know, drop my bookcase, so that's okay. You don't need to know what the book looks like, do you? You'll find it.
Don't worry about it.
There we go. There. Ta-da. There's a few down there, but that's okay.
I got woken up in about the same time as it is for you now,
right.
a few weeks ago, by my entire bookshelf that's like near me, like collapsing onto, not like there's books stacked on top, can you see? And there was a lot more of them, and they kind of overbalanced, and we just woke up like in the night with all the crashing as they were hitting the ground.
Oh God. Yeah, that would have been very scary. Actually, I am out. So we have this like converted shed at the back, and like literally that's that's the laundry over there. So I'm out here because I didn't want to disturb everyone out, like, because everyone's still asleep, you know, inside. So I'm like, okay, I'll just go out the back and do that. So it's literally, you know, because I do these online stuff. And actually, when the book came out in Australia, it was full, you know, COVID, you know, like Omicron, all that's in Australia. So, well, in the world. But so there was a lot of virtual events. My first events were all virtual because we basically cancelled my launch, etc. So I was doing this. So I set up this kind of thing which looked good on the screen, and you just cannot look either side, because then you see the mess, you know. So it's like, look, how professional. But yeah, obviously you don't want to look at the size and the amounts of laundry, etc. So yes,
Like books, everyone's going to be trying to work out what books you've got. And following on from that, Leslie said, "What books have you read and loved recently?"
Well, actually, I was going to say again. Let me just get it down. Actually, this one. Have you guys got that one? Yes, Shelley Burser. She wrote Wake. You probably all have. See, I have all the Australian covers, so it's very difficult to work out, you know, because it's like UK covers are different. But I think this has been released as Murder Town, maybe in the UK. But this is the second of Shelley Burr's books, so the follow-up to her debut, Wake. Again, hopefully it's released as Wake in the UK. Otherwise, I'm just saying names and you'll be like, I don't know what to talk about. So that's she was a fellow debut with me. We both came out in 2022, and I think she won, is it the 2020 UK debut Dagger, maybe, I think. Anyway, but so anyway, her second book has just come out, so hopefully you can get into that. But I believe it's called Ripper here, but I think it's called Murder Town when it comes out in the UK. So that's been really good. So that's like a town where it's like the most famous thing that happened in the town was this serial killer. So there's been 3 killings, and he got caught trying to, you know, in the fourth murder, but then like 15 years later, there's a new killing, and you don't know, is it did they ever catch the correct person? Is it a copycat killer? Is it a accomplice that they never caught, etc. So that's the mystery. So in the town of Raina, so that's a really good one. And another one I just read, which unfortunately I don't have a copy of because I got a early advance copy on digitally. But again, hopefully it is in the UK. It's called Kill Your Husbands by Jack Heath. Do you get Jack Heath in the UK? Hopefully you do. But he's a very prolific writer in Australia, mainly kids and YA, but he's written a series of for adults. I think he's only to his fifth book for adults, or crime. And anyway, this is Kill Your Husbands, which is like a locker room mystery, which I love. 3 couples going off, like I think they knew each other like as acquaintances during high school, and now they're going off to this holiday house in the mountains. No phone reception, lot of simmering tensions, and then people start dying, and the story goes from there. And it's excellent. Like, it's excellent. It was such a hoot reading it. When you're in the best possible hands, and you're just like, oh my god, how, So hard recommend both those books. Hopefully you get into the UK, but anyway, if not, you can look it up, hopefully.
Shelley's book is out apparently, but the second book is December UK release.
Oh, okay, there you go. So yes, so that's it. It is Murder Town, isn't it, in the UK? Is that what it's called?
I don't know. I think so. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So I think this
the first one is still called Wake in the UK.
Yes.
Laura's
okay,
saying
good.
that she loved it.
Yeah. Oh, great.
So she has a fan over here as well.
Oh, fabulous. Yeah. No, the second one's excellent as well. So, yeah, hopefully you'll enjoy that too.
And I googled her while you were telling it, Susan. She did. She won the CWA debut dagger.
Yes, that's right. Yes. I thought I was sure she had, but I wasn't. I think it was 2020. No, was it 2020 or a bit earlier or something like that? But I knew she had. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, the Dagger Awards are quite a big thing. There's some really good authors.
Yes. Yeah. Some amazing, and a few Australians have won it as well. So it's good. Yeah. There's a few of the people in my bookshelf. Michael Robotham, and I think and Peter Temple, of course. I'm sure Peter Temple has won. Maybe not the debut, but I'm sure he's won a dagger. But yeah, anyway, there's a few.
What do you think is the appeal over here for like Australian fiction? Because it seems to be making quite a kind of resurgence at the moment with like Jane Harper, Shelley Bear.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, look, I think people like Jane Harper and Chris Hammer have really opened the doors for us, and have really shown, I guess, even publishers as well, that it can be, like a commercial success in like overseas, in overseas territories, and I think also streaming services have allowed audiences in general to be interested in stories outside of their own territories, so they have access to different stories now. And so I think the audience in general for all kind of content, God, I hate that word, but content is diversifying, and there are audiences for all different stories. And I think we are, now, because there's so much available to us, we're not kind of like, there is an automatic audience for more, because I think before there was streaming services, you had to kind of wait for the movies to come out, or you had to wait for the new book to come out. Whereas now, like, it's just at your fingertips all the time. So the minute you finish your one book, you're like, okay, well, where's the next thing? So I think there is a lot more interest in people, just in other stories in general. And I think Australia is one of the good things about with Australian books, and that recent resurgence of interest in Australian books, is that we can hopefully show that it's not just outback as well. You know, Australia's so big, and there are these areas that flood, and there are. I mean, the area that this book is set in, it's like, you know, it's tropical. It's green. You know, so it's not kind of the red soil kind of outback. That kind of version of Australia, which is usually the version that we kind of export. So, but yeah, so I think it's good. I think we can, in the same way that Australian audiences can view the UK or the Europe or the US and see it in all of its settings and all of its people. You know, I think, you know, now with that resurgence, hopefully those audiences can see Australia in all of its, you know, all of its differences as well. So yeah, so I think it's a great opportunity for both sides. Yeah.
I think the last Australian book I read and really enjoyed was Emma Stiles's No Country for Girls.
Oh yes, yeah, I haven't read that yet, but yes, that's been getting a lot of amazing publicity. Yes, and I need to read that. Yes, I know. There's so many. Honestly, there's so many. Yes, I mean, you would know because and that's the thing as well, because it's like there's all these amazing books coming out from everywhere. So you've got UK books, and then you've got, you know, US books, you know, so like there's just so many amazing books. So yes, but people do keep talking to me about that book. I really need to get it.
I would recommend it. It was really good. Although it is, like you were saying, maybe what you would more expect of an Australian novel, because it is
okay.
like a trip across the outback.
Yeah.
But it I think it's like an area that Emma knows really well, so it's like it does feel like it's a bit of a love story for like the bit of Australia that is like,
which is amazing. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with Outback Noir. Like, you know, it's incredible. But I think, like I would love, that sounds wonderful. I would love to read that. So so I need to put that on my list. Absolutely.
She describes it as a bit of like a Thelma and Louise. And
wow. Amazing.
Across the outback, I think. I'm trying to remember exactly how she describes it, because I've interviewed her a couple of times.
Oh, fabulous.
But yeah, it is really good. Not that the Torrent isn't. Like the Torrent is equally as good. It's a great book. I think what the Torrent does differently though is because like Emma's is like a standalone, so it's very like different to like the way that you've written yours, which is, you know, kind of setting up for a series.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, because I think the first book is different, isn't it? When it's a standalone, like maybe a lot more will happen in it, whereas like a first book in a series, you have to spend a bit more kind of building the characters and stuff to go on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, for me, like I always say, the Torrent is very much my kind of almost like an apprenticeship book, you know, because as I said, like I don't have a history of writing per se, you know, like I really started that when I had my kids. So I was like learning how to write a crime book. No, you know, I was really learning how to write a book while I was doing this. And it was very much as a result of, you know, a lot of established writers and people in the industry who, you know, I was very lucky to have a number of mentorships with, and through that process of kind of getting feedback and really learning how to write this book was how this book came about. So it really felt like, you know, there was a long time there that I was absolutely convinced that this was not going to get published. This was not going to go anywhere. And that this would be my, you know, in the drawer kind of manuscript. And I actually started working on the second one as a means of, you know, not thinking about this book constantly going out and getting rejected, but also, you know, I felt like, okay, well, maybe I can write the second one, and maybe the second one will get interested if they ask for another one. I think, oh, well, here's what I did earlier, you know. And I really expected it to be the kind of 2-1. It'll be maybe Taken would get accepted first, and potentially people might like the Torrent first. But then, of course, you know, that's not how it worked out. It's, you know, but so the Torrent got published in Australia because there was a HarperCollins in Australia runs a unpublished manuscript award called the Banjo Prize, and I entered into that, and very surprising to me, but yay, it won that prize. So that the prize, or the competition prize, is a publication deal. So that's how it got on shelves, and then they liked the ideas for the second and third, and got those two on board as well.
That's brilliant. And it's good that those prizes exist, isn't it? Because I think that's what is helping bring so much good crime fiction out into the world, that there is like these things that are going out and looking for kind of
absolutely. Honestly, like if you for all the kind of the emerging and aspiring authors, they're like absolutely always submit to competitions, because honestly it's guaranteed that it'll get read. Because the problem with the slush file is, they're just sitting there, and you might get picked up, but who knows how long it's going to take for people to pick it up and read it. And even when you submit to agents and stuff, they're so busy, and it's just that it might sit with them for 6 months, 7 months, who knows, longer, I've heard. But with competitions, I mean, they have set deadlines. They have to announce a shortlist by X date, like it's on their website, so they have to read it, by that point. So, even if the answer is a no, like even if you're basically being told, okay, your manuscript's not ready, and I've submitted to many competitions where I don't get a, call back or answer back, or I don't get into any long list, short list, whatever. But if you do get into one of those lists, you're like, oh, okay, my writing is getting there. It has actually been read, and it's getting there. And so I think it is it's an easy kind of resource that's just out there, that's literally going to be read by industry professionals. So people who are actually working in the industry, who read this stuff all of the time. Like that is literally their job. They're reading manuscripts all of the time. So if you get into one of those long lists or short lists, it's basically saying, hey, you're close. This is the kind of writing that's close to the established writers who are getting published. So it gives you that hope, and it gives you. So I just think, I just think it's an easy way to work out if you're in the ballpark, and I've got rejected or rather I have got no reply back from many competitions, but it doesn't stop you from submitting, so I just think, submit, which is the only way you can kind of get there. So yeah.
But you want a good one. With the book coming out over here, so we've got 2 of them coming out over here, are you likely, so you've done sort of interviews with us and things like that, you're likely to come over for a visit at any point during our crime festivals?
Maybe. Oh, I'd love to. I mean, hey, I'm not going to say no to anything. I don't have specific plans at this particular moment in time, because it is a bit of a trip, and the kids are still quite young. But yeah, I mean, yes, I would love to. Hey, invite me, someone, and I would love to. That would be amazing if I could. Yes. So I would definitely not say no. Let's put it that way.
Because do you have I'm thinking over here we've just had Bloody Scotland happening, which is a really good kind of crime festival, talking about the things you were saying about winning the prize. They have like a competition for unpublished authors to try and get a deal, and all sorts of other things. Have a debut prize for fiction and stuff like that. I'm just wondering what kind of ones you have near you, kind of big book festivals. And
yeah, actually Australia's got a really, really good festival scene. I mean, absolutely, like Bloody Scotland and Capital Crime and all of that, all those amazing festivals. I mean, I would love to. And I think it's just with the book coming out, I think hopefully once people kind of read it, and and hopefully that will permeate a little bit, and be awesome to get some invites, but that's all in the hands of the gods. But yeah, I've been really lucky in Australia. We've got a really good festival scene here as well, and there's some really good crime festivals here. The Sydney the Bad Sydney Crime Festival, which happens kind of September, end of the year. So it used to be happening in September, but now it's actually moved to November this year. And that usually it's like a 3 or 4 day festival, which essentially reflects kind of the best in crime in all of Australia. And they invite people from all the different states. And Australia's a massive country, so you're like flying people from everywhere, you know, and a lot of the debuts get to go there. So that is a really big kind of crime festival where you get a lot of kind of, it really showcases Australian crime. The other one is Terra Australis in Tasmania, the Huon Valley in Tasmania, and that's usually kind of like October, November. They have it. This year it's in October, and they are able to get kind of international guests. So this year it's going to be Anne Cleves, which is going to be amazing. So she's flying down, and then there's going to be obviously Gary Disher, who's, you know, amazing, like kind of 30, 40 plus, you know, novels. And Vanda Simons from New Zealand. So that's going to be great as well. So yeah, so there's some really great festivals actually in Australia that kind of really, and usually even just the standard kind of literary festivals usually do tend to have like at least 2 or 3 kind of sessions on crime, because you know, there is such a huge love of crime in Australia, so that there's usually a session, you know, that we can sneak in even into those festivals. So yeah, no, it's great. Yeah.
No, it's good. I mean, I presume there would be a lot of really good festivals. It's kind of interesting to hear about other places.
Yeah. No, it's good. There's definitely a great lit scene here, and there's a lot of what's like lots of regional festivals, because it's such a massive country. Often the big festivals in the capital cities, you know, like the regional people who live in regional Australia can't really travel. Well, I mean, they can obviously, but you know, it's an effort. Like, you've got to travel, you've got to get accommodation. Like, it's a full, you know, it's a lot more expense. So there are actually quite a few regional festivals that are put on locally, you know, and that's almost, even in a way, it's almost like it has a different vibe, because often even the authors have traveled quite a long way. So we're often staying kind of overnight. So you really get a bit of a party vibe in those kind of smaller regional festivals, rather than the big literary festivals where you're kind of coming in for the session and then kind of leaving type thing. So yeah, so there's honestly, there's a really lovely literary scene in Australia, and I've been kind of blown away about how kind of generous everyone has been, and so incredibly welcoming, you know, because literally they don't know me from a bar soap, but you know, 2 years later, you know, like it's been amazing. I've been incredibly fortunate, and there's some you know, there's a huge amount of generosity in kind of writers who open that door for kind of new people coming in. So yeah.
Crime writers in general are just really nice people.
They genuinely are. They're honestly so generous. And even like, you know, like, I mean, in the UK, like people like Val McDermott, who, you know, read my book, and I was like, what? Like, oh my God. Like, why are you reading my book? Anyway, but yeah, so I was, she tweeted about it, and I was like, yeah, I was just so shocked. One, that she'd read it, and two, that she'd liked it, you know, and that, again, that reflects enormous generosity on her part, because she will be getting probably, you know, 10 books a day or more being sent to her to, you know, to read, and she, you know, like, that reflects extraordinary kind of generosity in spirit to kind of, you know, to read those newer authors coming up, and kind of, you know, and being lovely about their words, which is so lovely. Yeah.
That is like a bit of a thing though. Val does a New Blood panel at the Harrogate Crime Festival every year, so I think she does read a lot of debut.
Yeah, no, it's great, and that's so lovely. Again, as I said, certainly my entire kind of publishing journey has been benefited enormously by established writers in Australia who have read and given me feedback, and the Torrent was absolutely the result of that. So the version that went into that competition that I was just talking about, I had just won a mentorship with crime writer Emma Biskich, which I know she's in the UK, so she has the Caleb Zelig series in the UK, and so she kind of read through my manuscript and gave me, and you know, and all the revisions that I did for that. So that's the version that went into that banjo prize. So it really, like, you know, like I always say, like, you get to have your name on the cover, but actually it doesn't reflect all of the people who have helped you, you know, and you get like 2 or 3 pages at the back to kind of say all the people who have helped you. But honestly, like, it's their knowledge and their kind of expertise. They're like, you know, who are able to read something with that experience and go, hey, this is not working because of X, and, you know, this bit is slow, and, you know, and I have, benefited from that enormously.
So what's next for you? So we're a little bit behind in your publishing. So we've got the Torrent coming out this month, Taken January. What is coming up for you in Australia? What are you working on? What are you coming out with?
So in Australia, the 3rd book in the series is coming out end of January 2024. So essentially at the same time, you know, or a little bit later, actually, later in the month that Taken comes out in the UK, the 3rd book will come out in Australia. And that book's called Tipping Point. So I had one of my sales reps going, you have to maintain the T titles. It's very important that you do this. And I'm like, is that a thing? So apparently that's a thing. Originally I had a different title, but then we workshopped, and now it's a T title. So I've made her happy. Anyway, so that's coming out, and then hopefully that book will come out later in 2024, I think, towards the end of the year in 2024 in the UK. So and then hopefully in the meantime I'll be working on my standalone.
That might be interesting. In the UK, we have a game show called Tipping Point.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Well, there you go. It's got nothing to do with that. No, Kate has not become a contestant in that show.
Just an interesting thing, isn't it? How, like, you know, like if you said that, like over here, we would think of.
It's funny. Yes, because one thing I did definitely Google it, and I was like, okay, there's no other crime, because I just go directly to kind of crime novels, and, you know, like what other. So if there's another crime novel that said Tipping Point, I'll be like, oh, but I usually don't, you know, look at any other thing. But anyway, hopefully. So I don't know, maybe, that's what it's called at this stage.
That's great to know. So we could get 2 books next year from you.
Yeah, hopefully, yes, hopefully, yes. That is the plan, I think. Yeah.
Which would be really good. That's great. More to read.
Yes.
So you've won the prize. One of our other favourite questions is your memorable moments as an author so far. So I'm guessing one of them might have been winning the prize.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely. That was extraordinary. I mean, I think honestly, the fact that you get to hang out with your heroes, you know, like you get to hang out with your kind of literary heroes on the same stage, which I found quite weird, because I'm still massively fangirling, and you're meant to be kind of like on a panel with these authors, and I'm like, oh my god. Anyway, so that has been quite something that I needed to get my head around. And so one of my favorite authors has always been kind of Michael Robotham, who I know is a massive, you know, seller in the UK. And like I have been in his signing lines, you know, and I have his kind of messages that he has written to me over the years. And, you know, and I remember, and like last year I got to interview him in conversation when his new book came out, you know, Lying Beside You. And I was like, and he had written in my books, I remember he wrote, you know, keep finding the time to write. And then in another book he wrote, what did he write? I think he wrote, let's share a stage one day. And then when I finally won the banjo, he wrote, you know, to a fellow author, you know, like, and he's just so incredibly generous. And then I get to sit on that same stage with him, you know, and interview him. And yeah, that blew my mind, because to me, he's full celebrity, because, you know, like in Australia, we have, like, well, we used to have this kind of book club show on TV, and he used to be one of the regular presenters. So for me, he's like literally been on TV, and, have all these books, and so that was so I reckon that was a pretty special moment.
Hard to keep the excitement in when you do stuff like that, isn't it? We've done
it's so lovely.
like our author chat team are a bit the same. Sometimes we'll try to look really calm on the thing, but there have been ones where we've interviewed people and it's been like I had to have a bit of a moment like beforehand.
Yeah, totally. Because like honestly, it really isn't that long ago where I was on the other side, and I still am on. I still consider myself a fan because every time I get a book, or particularly now, when you get published, you get sent a lot of kind of early copies, and you're like, wow, just the privilege of getting sent an early copy, like that is very cool, and so like I still get that excitement, and it's still and when like I've had like an author like say hi to me, and I turn around and oh hi, because like who am I, because it's weird, it's still that weird because I am the fan still, but they are turning around and saying hello as if like you're a colleague, but it still kind of blows your mind.
You've been so much fun to interview. We have got a few minutes left. Do you want to remind everyone a bit about the Torrent, and like so they know what they're going to go away and buy?
Yeah, absolutely. So, just firstly, thank you for kind of being here and allowing me this opportunity to kind of rabbit on. So Torrent is the first in a police procedural series featuring Detective Kate Miles. In the Torrent, she is heavily pregnant. She's in her last week of work, I should say, before she goes on maternity leave. And she's kind of being asked to review a bit of a cold case involving an apparent accidental death in floodwaters. And and she's been kind of basically told how she should write that report, and that doesn't sit well with her. So she kind of goes off and does her own thing, as these kind of cases usually go. So so that's kind of the first in the series. So that's coming out on the 18th of September in the UK, which is very exciting, with this cover. I'm not going to drop it this time. So there we go. Which is actually, it's an incredible cover. Like this is, I'll show you. This is the cover in Australia. So it's a really different cover, which I love. Yeah, it's beautiful with the flood. And then Taken, which is the second book in the series, picking up the story about 4 months after the events of the Torrent, comes out in the UK in early January. So I think the 4th or 5th, I can't remember, 5th, I think. Yes. So that's going to be exciting. And a third one on the way.
It is a really good cover.
You want sorry?
It is a really good cover, the book.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. Yes. I love this cover. As soon as I saw it, I was like, wow, this is, and they've done this thing with the sky as well, like this orange kind of, it's great. I love it. It's beautiful. It's a really good cover. Very kind of arresting, which I love. Yeah.
And then all that's left to say is thank you so much for getting up at a ridiculously early hour to come and talk to us.
No, it's always fun. It's such a huge opportunity. I mean, like I just think, wow, thanks for inviting me. You don't have to, and you did, so thank you. I appreciate it. It's so cool to have the books in the UK. I mean, it's awesome. It's fantastic.
You're more than welcome. And when you come back next time, we'll coordinate the timings much better than we did this time.
No, it's all good. It's totally fine. No, it's good. It's actually, I'm actually better in the mornings than I am at night. So it's like, okay, I'm up and let's do this. Yeah, so it's all good.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you. Thanks, guys.